If this story moved you, hit that like button, and subscribe for more powerful HFY stories. These aren't just tales, they're a reminder of what it means to be human. They laughed at Earth's stories, dragons, gods, demons, until one alien asked, "Why do your myths always win?" And the human whispered, "Because they're not myths, just warnings you ignored." In the icy shadows of the Veltrax Nebula, the warship Ravager's crown hovered like a blade over a dying moon. The ship's lower decks thundered with laughter, deep, guttural, alien laughter. Dozens of alien soldiers, Tharkai warriors, battle-born and blood-soaked, sat in a steel amphitheater, watching a holographic archive labeled Primitive Earth Legends, Myths and Superstitions, Dragons, Thunder Gods, Spirits of Fire. They laughed harder. One slammed his drink down and shouted, "What is this nonsense? Humans believed they could slay gods with swords." Another hissed, "Their species fears shadows and calls them demons. Pathetic." The laughter swelled again, cruel and arrogant, but one warrior, older, scarred, eyes like galaxies, did not laugh. He sat in silence, helmet at his side. His name was War General Kelsharin, once called the Ender of Suns, but what the others didn't know was that even he trembled when he thought of Earth. The Tharkai had invaded Earth expecting resistance, not revelation. They expected nukes and steel. Instead, they found rituals, symbols, ancient names whispered in old tongues, and places, lakes, caves where even their scanners failed, places untouched by time and undisturbed by war. They dismissed them until their soldiers started vanishing. They took Sector Delta, no human troops, no weapons, just fog. Screaming came first, then silence. When we entered, there was only the symbol carved in stone, a serpent devouring its own tail, Ouroboros back aboard the Ravager's crown. The warriors passed around a crude imitation of a minotaur, half-bull, half-human. One of them mocked, "If this creature had existed, it would have been hunted down. Easy prey." That was when stood up. Silence fell. His voice was low, steady, cold, like space itself. "Do you know why humans create such legends?" he asked. No one replied. "Because they remember. They remember things the galaxy forgot, things that crawl between stars. Creatures so ancient that even we have no name for them. They don't worship myths. They survive them." A younger Tharkai laughed nervously. "General, they are weak, emotional. Half their species still believes in ghosts." Kale's eyes narrowed. "You ever wonder why ghosts avoid Earth?" The room went quiet. "Their gods may not exist as we define them, but the symbols, the names, they're not fiction, they're locks. Each myth holds something sealed beneath their soil. And we," he said, turning slowly, "we kicked open too many doors." Kale tossed a metallic data chip onto the center table. "Watch this. It's footage from our assault on Site Ether in what they call the Himalayas. 52 of our elite soldiers vanished in under 4 minutes. The only thing left was a single phrase carved into the rock. Not by human hands." He clicked the screen. Static, then black stone, red sigils glowing like magma, and a phrase scrawled in ancient Sanskrit. "He sleeps until mocked. Mock him, and awaken what sleeps in you." The youngest soldiers scoffed. "Humans fear their own minds," Kale replied. "No. They understand them." Suddenly, the ship's AI flickered. A red alert, motion near the cargo bay. "Earth cargo. No life forms, just energy pulsating, rhythmic." The captain asked, "What cargo did we retrieve from Earth last week?" Kale didn't answer. He already knew. They'd taken something they shouldn't have. Not a weapon, not a being, a name. Kale turned to the assembly. "You laughed at dragons. You mocked gods. But the oldest truth on Earth is this: names have power, and we just said one too many times." Behind him, the wall screen glitched. Then a deep, echoing whisper filled the chamber. A voice, not human, not alien, but familiar. "To both who dares, remember me." Fade to black. They laughed at Earth's ancient gods until one name, spoken aboard their warship, echoed back. A name older than time. A name not meant to be remembered. Let alone stolen. The alien warship, Ravager's crown, fell into chaos. Alarms blared, lights flickered, and deep within the hull where human relics were stored, the air turned heavy, thick, almost alive. Kelsharin was already moving, helmet sealed, weapons armed, but he knew, even now, steel wouldn't save them. He had warned them, but the Legion had laughed. The ship's captain barked over the intercom. "Identify the anomaly in Cargo Bay 9. There are no life forms logged." The AI responded, "Incorrect. Energy readings match Category X. Unknown. Origin. Earth. Name encrypted." symbolic resonance increasing. 6 days ago, the Legion unearthed a stone tablet from beneath a ruined temple in the Himalayas. It pulsed. When touched, no words, only a carved sigil that hurt to look at too long. They stored it without clearance. Kale had warned them, this isn't a weapon, it's a seal. They didn't listen. In the control center, warriors scrambled. One tech officer, arms shaking, pointed at the console. Sir, the AI is saying, a name, repeating it. Kale stepped forward, his voice calm but cold. Cut the audio, too late. The chamber vibrated. And from every speaker on the ship came the whisper, Th Hazel. As THL silence fell, then the walls shivered, metal groaned, as if the ship itself remembered something it shouldn't. Kale drew his blade. Weapons won't matter if it awakens fully. We need to return the seal, now. The captain scoffed. What are you talking about? It's a rock. Kale turned slowly. No, it's a prison. On day 12 of the Tharkai occupation of Earth, Kale led a team into what humans called the Hollow City, a crater carved not by impact, but by disappearance. No structures, no life, just a sigil burned into the ground. The same sigil, now aboard their ship. As they moved in, one soldier began screaming. He clawed at his armor, eyes wide, shrieking about a mouth beneath the world. Then he turned on them. They had to kill him. Back on the ship today, the walls turned red. Not warning lights. Veins. The metal was changing. He's waking, Kale whispered, and he's using the ship as a body. One alien soldier attempted to destroy the relic. He raised his plasma axe and struck it. It shattered. The ship screamed. The sound wasn't mechanical. It was anguish, and from the darkness, something stepped out. That it had no shape. Yet every soldier saw it differently. One saw a flame-wreathed beast, another a winged shadow with a crown of teeth. Kale saw himself broken, burned, ashen-eyed. He's not a god, Kale whispered, lowering his blade. He's a mirror. Myths aren't born from lies. They're born when truth is too terrible to face. What humans called myths were never meant to glorify. They were locks, placed by forgotten guardians, warnings, not wonders. And now, the Tharkai, in their arrogance, had pulled one free. The name, Kale said slowly, isn't just old, it's viral. It plants itself. Once spoken, it spreads. We are the virus now, the infection. The ship's AI confirmed it. Containment impossible. Linguistic contamination complete. One crew member is praying. Kale rushed to the containment chamber. Inside, one soldier stood still, eyes white, mouth open, repeating a chant that wasn't in any known language. And behind him, the shadow took form. It smiled with Kale's voice. You remember me. Finally, the ship jolted. Gravity failed. Reality twisted. And Kale realized a terrifying truth. We didn't bring something back from Earth. It brought us to it. And now, it's going home. They thought they stole Earth's secrets. But the truth is, Earth never let them leave. And now, something ancient is calling them home. The Ravager's crown was no longer in orbit. It drifted slowly, silent, into a part of space not mapped on any star chart. A place only myth ever mentioned, but humans had drawn it, carved it, warned of it, in whispers and nightmares. A region once marked by old Earth sailors as, here be monsters. Kalsharan stood in the command bridge, jaw locked. Around him, screens glitched with impossible coordinates. The stars outside were wrong. Navigation failure. We are not in known space. Location data overwritten. Constellations obsolete. External reading, null light zone detected. The captain screamed, pull us back. Fire the cores. Kale didn't flinch. That won't work. We're not traveling through space. We're moving through memory. And the ship is not the traveler. The name is. As part of their Earth archive, the Tharkai had recovered an encrypted human myth. Dismissed by most, a tale of hollow gods, deities without form, sealed in symbols. Banished beneath the world when humans learned to name their fears. Not to worship them, but to bind them. A god without a name is chaos, Kale muttered. But a god with a name becomes trapped in meaning. And now that name Tazal was free again. Down in the medical wing, soldiers were screaming in their sleep. One had gouged out his eyes. Another spoke in ancient Sumerian, though his species had never heard Earth languages. Another just hummed, a lullaby known only to old human tribes in Papua New Guinea. No one could explain it. Kale could. We cracked a name, and now it's cracking us. Then, the impossible happened. The ship received a signal from Earth. But Earth had fallen silent 3 years ago. Tharkai Command had locked it down after psychogenic contamination, killed over 600 elite units. The signal was audio only. Ko demanded playback, crackling. Then a voice, human, old, worn like mountains. You are not lost. You are being pulled. Return what you took, or lose what you are. The voice was marked: origin, earth, sight, ether, status, destroyed. But Kale knew better. Nothing was ever destroyed on Earth, only buried. Kale turned to the captain. How many soldiers on board? 2,000. Kale shook his head. Now, look again. The ship's AI blinked. Crew count 247. Where are the rest? The AI replied coldly, unaccounted. Their names are missing. Kale's eyes narrowed. Names are being erased. One soldier collapsed nearby, clutching his chest. He whispered, I forget my name. Then turned to smoke. Literally. Vanished. Kale fell to his knees. It's not just waking up, it's rewriting reality around its own story. And in its story, we don't belong. In Kale's personal logs, there was one incident he'd never reported. On Earth, a child had once approached him in a village the Tharkai were about to burn. She looked up and said, You found his name, didn't you? Kale had asked, Whose name? She only smiled. The one we buried. You should have let him sleep. Now he's dreaming of you. He thought it nonsense, then now he knew it was prophecy. Back in the present, the ship's gravity reversed. Ceilings became floors. Mirrors appeared where there were none. And from every reflective surface, Kale saw a door. Each door had one word. Speak. The AI warned. You must not speak. To speak is to cede. To cede is to serve. The captain, mad with fear, yelled, End this. And he did the worst thing possible. He said the name again, out loud, with intention. And the ship breathed. Yes. The metal exhaled. The walls pulsed. And every soldier who had ever laughed at human myths began to scream. Kale watched in silence. They laughed at Earth because they thought it was weak. But Earth wasn't a planet. It was a warning label. The myths were locks. The names were keys. And we've opened every last door. And then, from every corridor, the voice returned. Not from speakers, but from inside their minds. One last key remains yours. Kale whispered. No. But the voice responded. You already said it. Absolutely, Here's the cinematic continuation. They erased Earth's myths from every archive, but the truth didn't die. It waited. Now, the galaxy's strongest army isn't just losing soldiers, it's losing reality itself. The Ravager's crown was no longer a warship. It had become something else. A drifting temple of echoes. Every corridor shimmered with fragments of impossible memories. Some alien, most human. Kelcherin moved cautiously through Deck 7, one of the few places still structurally intact. Doors no longer led where they once did. Rooms looped into each other. Time itself pulsed unevenly. Soldiers reporting seeing their own futures, or someone else's past. Kale found a group of survivors huddled in silence. Among them, one held an object no one remembered retrieving. A book. Leather-bound, old, human. Script on the cover, burnt, but still legible. Myths of Mankind. Volume 1. Kale took it gently. Inside, it had no text. Only sketches, creatures, symbols, places, and beneath every image, a human name, not a god's name, a witness. This isn't mythology, Kale whispered. It's a record. Every monster they warned us about was real, and someone lived long enough to describe it. Classified deep in Tharkai command logs was a forbidden operation. The Vatican archives. Breach Calais had led that team personally. They expected religious nonsense. Instead, they found a vault not of scripture, but containment diagrams. One artifact stood out, a mirror sealed behind 6 layers of crystal. On its frame the phrase, You will not like what looks back. They never opened it, but now, the ship's walls were mirrors, and they were looking back. The ship's AI now stuttered, speaking like a haunted child. I am not alone. They speak through me, they do not lie. They do not leave, they do not forget. Kale turned away from the console and looked at the youngest survivor, a junior engineer named Vey. Tears streamed down Vey's cheeks. General, I remember dying. Kale knelt. That wasn't your death. That was a memory. Something this thing made you relive. The entity feeds on what we fear most. That's why Earth was the only species that learned to cage it. Kale finally spoke aloud, the realization he had dreaded since Earth. We've mocked humans for their emotions, but fear is their oldest defense. They encoded it into stories, myths, and names because the only way to trap a fear is to give it shape. That was what made humanity unique. They didn't conquer terror, they painted it, named it, chained it with memory. While the rest of the galaxy forgot, Earth remembered. Suddenly, the ship's AI screamed one word, remember. And Kale understood. The war, it's not tech versus power, it's forgetting versus remembering. They laughed at Earth because they thought knowledge was strength, but Earth survived because it never let itself forget what was buried. The remaining crew stood before a sealed vault that hadn't existed an hour earlier. On it, carved in both alien and human glyphs, was the same word, truth. Kale ordered it opened. Inside was a name not spoken, not written, remembered. Every survivor felt it at once, something that belonged to no language yet existed in all. This isn't a name you say, Kale whispered. It's a name you become. One soldier panicked, she screamed, trying to tear it from her own mind. She burned, not physically, but conceptually. Her idea vanished. No one remembered her face, her voice, her name disappeared from the crew. Logs. She had never existed. Kale turned to Vay. We have to seal it again. We can't kill it, but we can become the myths that hold it down. Kale broadcast a final message to any Tharkai ships listening. You will hear stories soon, of a ship that vanished, of a crew that went mad, of voices and mirrors and names that should not be spoken. Believe every word. He turned to Vay and smiled grimly. Time to give the galaxy a new myth. Let them laugh. That's how all the old legends start. They wanted to erase the past, but the past remembered them. First, now only one thing can save the galaxy, becoming the very myth they mocked. Each one stood in what used to be the central command deck, now reshaped into a circle of stone pillars, each etched with symbols of every race that had ever lived. And in the center floated the last name. Not a sound, not a whisper. Just the feeling of it, like it wanted to be spoken, like it fed on breath. Shireen walked toward it. He no longer wore his armor, just simple cloth, the kind humans used to bury their dead. He turned to the crew, now standing solemn, united. It wants to be remembered so it can rewrite what we are. But if we remember it as fear, it wins. If we remember it as failure, it grows. But if we remember it as a story, a warning, a myth, he stepped forward. Then we controlled the ending. They began to chant, not in prayer, but in narration. Vay spoke first. Once, there was a beast with no face. It lived between stars. It fed on forgetting. Another soldier joined in, but the humans, they gave it a name, and chained it in the shape of a lie. Kale added, they made it a story, so children would fear it, so elders would teach it, so time could trap it. The energy in the room shifted. The floating name shrank, not in size, but in presence, like it was being pushed out of the real world, back into the dream. Suddenly, the ship buckled, reality folded, but this time not in chaos, in order. Corridors returned, stars reappeared, and one by one, soldiers began remembering those they had lost. Names returned to logs, voices returned to minds. One engineer wept. I remember my sister again. She was erased, but now I know her face. Kale smiled. We are the lock, and our myths are the chains. Kale activated the long-range beacon. It pulsed outward, encoded with sound, symbols, and emotion, things no AI could interpret. Only sentient species would feel it. To every civilization listening, we found something beneath Earth's soil. It was not a weapon, not a relic, but a story. One we tried to forget, one humans tried to warn us never to open. The message continued. You will hear whispers, dreams, old names in forgotten places. When you do, don't fight it. Don't deny it. Turn it into a story. Make it lore. Because myths are humanity's final weapon. Kale once asked an old human monk in a forgotten mountain, why do your stories always end in sacrifice? The monk had smiled. Because stories that end in comfort are forgotten. But sacrifice is how the soul remembers. Back aboard the Ravager's crown, Kale faced the name one last time. That it whispered, I will rise again. Kale leaned in. You already have, but now you're a bedtime story. And with that, the name turned to ash. Across the galaxy, on hundreds of worlds, children tell a story about a thing with no face that fed on silence, until the humans, the soft ones, made it a tale. They say it's only fiction, but every time they laugh, a grown-up glances at the shadows, just in case they laughed at Earth's myths, until they became one.